Hello, welcome back. Apologies for that. As you know, sometimes being live out in the African bush comes with its own set of interesting difficulties. Our tech team is working through them at the moment. So for now, you are stuck with myself and Jamie in the Mara. Jamie is going to be in the migration control studio up on top of the hill because her car is not working. And we are going to be down here on the Mara floor. Now, it's getting to that time of the day yesterday when we had quite a few zebras crossing the Mara River. So I'm heading down towards the crossings to see if there's any action about in those parts. Now, for those of you who might be new, might not know what to do, hashtag Safari Live if you have any questions for us out here on whatever platform you might be watching on. Is that a very big herd of buffalo? I do think it looks to be. Unless all of a sudden there's been some sneaky wildebeest coming back. Let's just get a bit closer. It is already very, very warm. Now, as I said, I'm down on the Mara floor. I'm going to get a bit closer to these animals, but Jamie's ready to say hello from way up high on the hill.
Studio. On camera with me today is Jahawi. We've had an interesting morning. We got all the way to the gate, and then we didn't go any further. Well, we did, but being pulled by another car. So I thought we'd enjoy some story time, and I have to say, in his time in the studio, James has collected some truly quality writing. So we've got the book of Look Out, Cub to read to you today. Yawn! Time to get up, said Cub. Now what will I do today? It's yawning. It's actually really cute. Dad, let's play catch your tail. Not now, son, said Dad. I'm busy. And he does look busy, doesn't he? Let's practice pouncing, said the cub. Hey, get off, cried his sister. That tickles. So as you can see, this is what I assume James got up to in terms of reading material while he was based in the studio. I assume that's what kept him entertained. He'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not quite sure how Lookout Cub made it here, but it is truly, you have to read it. There's a twist at the end I just did not see coming. Right, let's talk about something sensible. So, over the last few days, we've spoken a lot about elephants' teeth and elephants' tusks, and we've had a lot of questions that have come through about how they work and how much tusks weigh, how the elephant utilizes them, what are they made of, all of those sorts of things. And it all connects to their teeth because, of course, a tusk is a tooth. Now, this is what an elephant's molar structure looks like. So this is not a real elephant molar. Just to clarify, this is part of our Bones Clones three-dimensional printed replicas. And essentially the way that an elephant's tooth works is it moves through a conveyor belt. So at any one point in time, this is what the top half of one jaw, top half of the other half of the jaw, bottom two halves, you know what I mean. You know. You get the idea. So essentially what will happen is that it moves in a conveyor belt and it pops up and it moves through. And the front part is obviously the oldest part of the tooth. That wears down as the elephant has to chew and eat throughout its entire life. So it's got to keep feeding in order to keep its body mass, that massive size, sustained. So as it chews, it wears down the teeth, and more teeth come in from the back. And what we saw yesterday, and the reason that I brought this up, was we saw that old elephant bull with the massive tusks, beautiful old boy. And you saw how he was moving around the water areas, and he was chewing on the soft food. And the reason behind that is he has now got no more teeth to replace his worn-down molars, so he's basically chewing on this kind of a surface. You see how worn down this part is? So he's chewing on that. Now he has to chew over and over and over to keep himself, well fed. and that's why he was looking in the condition that he was in. He was thin, his skin looked a little baggy. It's just the natural part of aging when it comes to elephants. So that was the example of the elephant's tooth. Herbie found me a piece of elephant molar, but a baby elephant's molar, not so long ago. I think it's still sitting in James's tent, unless I'm not mistaken, back on Djuma. And then we have a replica of a tusk as well, talking about how solid they are. So this, of course, is the substance that the tusk is made of. This is a replica. It is not a genuine piece of tusk. Please don't rob us. You can see there was even a price sticker there. So Jillian, this is obviously a piece of tusk, but yes, this molar would be the actual size of probably I would say a female. I think a male's would be even larger than this. And if you look here, if I turn it over, have a look at the structure of the roots. Now obviously, when you've got teeth that massive, they need to be very, very well anchored into the jaw itself. So although the teeth actually extend all the way down to here, but the root system is what holds them in place, and the root system is absolutely massive. And if you don't believe me that it's not real, I've just found a stamp from Bone Clones. Okay, I really want to get back to the book I was reading. It was thoroughly engrossing. But we've been talking about elephant teeth. Let's send you across to Brent so that you can see them being used in action.
There we go. As I say, maybe a lovely elephant cow grinding some grass with her teeth, not having to use her tusks because she's not debarking a tree or trying to strip anything or fight anything off. Just slowly but surely moving through from the riverine forest. And they've probably been down there this evening. Sorry, I got slightly distracted. I saw something on binoculars. Don't worry. And you can actually see behind this elephant cow is that big herd of buffalo we saw from a distance. So I haven't seen a big herd of buffalo in this area for a while, so it's nice that they're back. And, of course, this is the area where the hyenas have been known for hunting buffalo in North Clan lands. But as it gets warmer, I think the zebras are going to think about crossing, so I'm going to think about getting moving again. Now, I did see some zebras up ahead here, but they're going to an area that's not a crossing point, it's a drinking point. But often the Magoro pride will wait in ambush around here when the animals come down to drink. Okay, it's already quite hot today. Yesterday was a very hot day. Oh, speaking about wandering around in the clan lands with hyenas that hunt buffalo, I don't think these ones are hunting them at the moment, but it's a sub-adult and two sub-adults and an adult. Maybe just having a look to see if there's an injured or weak baby buffalo about. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't look like Djuma will be joining us again. They are trying to... Wait, back left a little bit. What's that there? Zoom, 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 zoom. Right. What do we got there? What is that? What is hiding in the bush? Is that... Thompson's gazelle. Sneaky Tommy. I got excited there for a second. There you go. Oh, lovely camera work, buddy. That was a little surprise, Tommy, popping in to say howdy doody. Romit is wondering, how successful are hyena at hunting? A little bit more successful than lions and leopards generally, but still not that successful. They have a very different strategy when it comes to hunting. Sometimes they are very smart in the strategies they use, where they'll push animals into broken ground or wet ground where they cannot escape them. They do it with zebra up on the escarpment. They push them into rocks often, and that's one of their best ways of taking down large prey. And other than that, with certain animals, they'll sort of just jog towards them and around them and look for any signs of weakness. And I'm pretty sure they'll do the same with the buffalo. Okay, let's keep going. Becca Sue is wondering, how do you age a hyena? With great difficulty is the answer, Becca Sue. Once they are about 2 years old and they've reached their full sort of adult size, it's quite difficult to age them until they become very old and tatty and manky and ripped ears and that. So it is very difficult to age a hyena, as it is with lions, if you don't know exactly when that lion was born. You can ballpark it, but I'd say hyenas are probably more difficult to age than the big cats. Okay, now, what else has the Mara got to offer us? That was a lovely little surprise, the Thompson's gazelle and the hyenas and the buffaloes. We saw, I think it was my first week in Kenya, just over here we saw the hyenas attacking a sickly baby buffalo. Oh, is there a car behind us, man? I thought I heard something. No, we're good. Okay, so we've got some zebra and waterbuck and impala and that here. We're just going to scoot past them though. I just want to get to the crossings at this time of the day. It seems to be sort of prime time at the moment for the zebras to cross the river. Okay, while we head down towards the murderous Mara River crossings, it sounds like Jamie is ready to give you the second installment of Storytime.
When you last left us, our hero was desperately searching for somebody to play with him. So first he tried his father, and his father said he was busy. Busy doing what, one might imagine? Well, who knows what the male lion was busy doing, but I have a few guesses. The second part of the story was that he went across to his sister and he tried to pounce on her. But, like all sisters, at that point wasn't too interested in playing with her little brother. So, the next installment, and this is largely for Lily, aged 3, apparently, who is watching, who was really enjoying the story time. So, to continue our tale. If no one will play with me, I'm going to explore on my own, said the cub as he stomped off. But where should I go? Dun dun dun. Wow, thought the cub as he explored. If I were a bird, I could see for miles. There's a bird in a tree. I know. I will climb a tree. Oh dear, this doesn't sound good. Up I go, said Cub. Easy peasy. What an awesome view. But climbing down wasn't so easy. Help! cried the cub. I'm stuck! And you'll have to stay tuned for the next installment to find out how the cub gets down the tree. If the cub climbs down the tree. This is where the twist comes in. Wait for it. So, Chitty Chatty Meg, to move on from our story time, because I'm sure somebody will be very, very upset if we don't chat about some of the more serious things. Chitty Chatty Meg would like to know about rhinos. From the basics to what species we see here to why we show them, and this is a very important one, why we show them here in the Mara as opposed to why we don't show them in South Africa. So let's start with that point. So within the Masai Mara, we show the rhino here. The only species of rhino that we get out here is the black rhino. Now let's go with that. Back in the Sabi sand, there are both white and black rhino. We hardly ever see the black rhino. It's unusual for us to see them, but we don't show them. Now ideally, what we would like to do is be able to show you rhino regardless of the situation. And the reason behind that is essentially we feel that the greatest conservation contribution that we can make in terms of a crew, in terms of showing you wildlife, is to make people fall in love with animals, whether it's the individual or the species as a whole, and want to be invested in protecting them. And the only way that you can really get people to understand the importance of rhinos, how magical they really are, is to show them to them. Now, bear in mind, a lot of you know about African wildlife, a lot of you are interested in African wildlife, but we do occasionally reach people who don't know much about wildlife at all and are not familiar. And that breach can build and build and build until we're actually educating people who might one day, maybe, turn around and say, no, I don't want that rhino horn. It doesn't work as medicine. So that's what we want to do, and we initially, when I first started, we didn't even really talk about rhinos. I'm very glad to say that has now changed almost completely. But the reason that we show them here in the Mara is there are more rhino in South Africa. South Africa has got the vast majority, in terms of countries, the vast majority of Africa's remaining wild rhino population, which is great. But it does mean that they're easier to catch and to kill, because it's essentially concentration. Now, I believe, personally, that by showing rhinos, we don't increase the risk to them at all, because the way that poaching works is it's generally speaking an inside job. These are professional people who get information and they come into the reserve. They know that rhino's there regardless. Certainly a static dam camera is one thing, but us showing rhino where we don't explain where they are, I don't think makes a difference. But we are going with the extra cautious route. Here in the Mara, we've spoken at length to the experts who are involved with protecting them, and they are more than happy for us to show them. They are more than comfortable. Remember, there are only just over 30 black rhino here. That's it. That's all there are. So when you see a rhino on our live safaris, it's a very, very special thing. We're also traversing 160,000 hectares, which is a little bit larger than the traverse area that the guys currently have on Djuma and Chitwa. So, first of all, it's hard to pinpoint where they are. Secondly, those rhinos are monitored almost all the time. So, not almost, all the time. There is always a ranger around that area checking up on each individual. There are ranger stations, there are rangers patrols. One of the big things about us being out at night is having a ranger so that they can let the other rangers know that we're out, so that we don't cause any trouble within the reserve, because then otherwise the anti-poaching teams might waste their time chasing us up. They see lights, they hear voices, whatever it happens to be, when they could actually be better invested spending their time elsewhere. The rhinos here are very, very protected, very, very individual. It would be wonderful if and when we get to the point where we can show you rhino regardless. I think that would be something that we would love to share with you, especially because the white rhino, as a general rule, tend to be a bit more relaxed around vehicles. I've had white rhino walk right up to us. There are unfortunately no more northern white rhino left. That is a species that has gone extinct. There's Sudan, of course, and Sudan is the famous northern white rhino male, and he recently joined let's call it a dating website. I can't remember what his profile said. So what I need from you is specific questions, because I can talk about rhino all day, but it's not going to be very exciting. So give me specific questions that we can answer. I wish we had James has got a tremendous collection of 3D printed skulls. It would be really quite lovely, apart from the wildebeest, those are real. It would be really quite lovely if we had a rhino skull, but a rhino skull is about that big. So think of questions you would like to ask on rhino. I'm in the studio. I have no problem talking about rhino all day. But I'm sure you're wondering what's happening with Brent across the river crossings, and when you come back, perhaps we can do the final installment of A Catchy Tale.
And we are in the area of the crossings. We've just gone past Cul-de-sac crossing. Nothing happening there. So onwards we go. Main North, Main South, and Dusty, or Vumbi, seem to be the busiest ones with these zebras that are heading towards the lush plains of Paradise on the other side of the river. Now, it always pays to keep a careful check out here for musketeers. The lions, they like this area quite a lot. Now, we've already seen 4 out of the big 5, so who knows, how lucky are we today? Are we going to pull a Mara leopard out of the bag before the end of drive to make it a solid 5 out of 5? So I'm not seeing zebras congregating. So often what they'll do is they'll be coming from the grasslands down to the south, and as that grass is not as green and the rain has fallen around the Paradise Plain, they come through this area and then down to the crossings, across over the ridge towards Paradise Musiara. We're going to go have a little squiz here. We're going to see what's going on nicely as we go over this ridge, so I can have a nice view if there's any animals working their way down toward the crossings. So far, it's quite quiet. Hi Clara. Clara is wondering if I ever seen a rhino crossing. I have not, Clara. And generally it's probably going to be quite unusual for rhinos to cross the river in these type of areas. It's a bit deep for them and maybe a bit fast. They'll probably only cross the river when it's very, very dry. But I have not seen a rhino crossing since I've been in the Mara. It doesn't look like we've got any build-up of animals around here today. But we're going to go see if we can see some of the behemoths that were not too well fed because of the amount of crocodiles there were there yesterday, but they did get a few morsels of zebra. So 2 baby zebra and 1 adult got taken by the crocodiles yesterday. That we know about, of course, and that was only at Main South where we were sitting.
I'm so sorry about that, everyone. Brent has disappeared off your screen. He has a problem with his SDI cable, I think. Something along those lines. So that's why he keeps coming and going. No, not yet. We're not doing the final installment of the story yet. We've still got a little while to go and drive, and we want to build up that anticipation. Find out, will the cub ever come out of the tree? Because, of course, we often see lions in trees here in the Mara. Less so in Djuma. The reason, of course, being that it is a much more closed system on Djuma. There's no tsetse flies. They don't have to go all the way up to escape the tsetse flies. There's more shade. And I don't know, I just don't think our lions particularly like climbing trees back in South Africa. They do, every now and again. But it's very seldom that we see them up a tree, and we get very excited when we do. So what I was trying to do was be able to share a document with Rebecca so that we could chat about the rhino questions. But Brent disappeared off your screens, and I locked myself out of everything. So it hasn't worked very well. But there we go. We have a question from Morning Glory about whether or not the Sabi Sand has a rhino protection crew that monitors their movements and protects them in the same way that they do in the Mara. It's different because there are more rhino. So I'm not going to go into full detail as to exactly what the Sabi Sands has in terms of anti-poaching. And the reason I'm not going to do that is that's pretty sensitive information. So I'm not going to share it. But I will tell you that there are anti-poaching teams, plural, who do monitor the rhinos, but They cannot monitor each and every single individual. They cannot move from individual to individual. I have worked on a reserve where that is the process. So it's as part of the agreement to release black rhino onto the reserve, essentially what they did was the WWF said you have to monitor them and check up on them each and every single day. It's quite a small number of rhino that we're talking about. 19 black, and now... Oh, geez, it was 19 white when I left. I think it's now about 12, unfortunately. Even that doesn't always work, even that sort of a system. When you're dealing with a massive area, remember it's the perimeters that are the most difficult. Now, in the Sabi sand, we're very fortunate as to where we are, because we have the protection of Kruger on one side, but the one big problem is that it's open to neighboring reserves. Now, with them being open to neighboring reserves, obviously you don't have the same amount of funding, the same level of anti-poaching from one reserve to another. They're not going to be the same. So the teams work together very closely, but there are certain weaker points within that. But, I mean, I'm not going to go into full detail, but when we are in the sands, we've all been polygraphed for exactly that reason. I mean, it's not something that necessarily can be used in a court of law, but it can raise flags. Remember how I said a lot of poaching jobs are inside jobs. That's not to throw suspicion onto everyone, but it's just one of those things. There's a huge amount of money involved and a lot of very desperate people who live in the neighboring communities, who live very, very close, if not below the poverty line. So before we race and jump to conclusions and judgments, just be aware that most of us, sitting as we are, where we are not quite on the same level, and for us to fully understand would be a very difficult thing to do. But no, they're not individually monitored. Or are they? I don't know. Jacqueline, it reminds me of The Gods Must Be Crazy. It was a South African film of great quality that made me chuckle enormously back in the day when I watched it. So you want to know, you've heard that the rhino are the firemen of the bush, and if they see a fire, they will go and stomp it out. No, they don't. And for the most part, they will try and avoid it at all costs. Let me just say I've lit many fires in the bush and sat round them all night, and I've had rhinos come right up close, but I've never had them run through my fire and stomp them out in the way that they are supposed to do. So no, I'm not sure where that came from. If it came from some kind of once-off encounter where the rhino was actually charging, and hello aeroplane, we are right below an airstrip. Maybe it came charging through and it happened to stand in the fire. I'm sure it was very upset and probably decided to run off shortly after that with some scorched feet. But no, they don't come and stomp out fires. Now I'm just imagining a rhino with a little fire helmet. It's quite sweet. Tay, yes. A rhino could recognize probably not a human's face. Any more than we have to really concentrate to recognize individual rhino faces. So no, they are not sight-based at all. They are so short-sighted. They really can't see well. That's half the reason why they tend to have a little bit of a bad temper, because they need to actually, it's not so much they have a bad temper as they want to assess what's going on around them. So recognize a human's face? No. Recognize the sound of their voice and their smell? Absolutely. If an orphan rhino is hand raised by one human being, they will continue to recognize that human being, just in the same way they have a bond with other members of the crash or at least the family that they've grown up in. And that bond will last. So they could recognize the sound of individual people's voices, just as most animals will also distinguish between the sounds of different types of vehicles. If a lion is fed in a boma from a vehicle, a specific vehicle, color, sound, diesel engine, whatever it happens to be, shape, they will come to recognize that particular vehicle, which is why it's always a good idea not to use a safari vehicle if you've got a lion in a boma. Makes sense. So yes, a rhino could absolutely recognize the sound of a person's voice. First rhino I have encountered was at the rhino camp in Lapalali, and his name was Bwana. And I remember distinctly him coming running out when the person who was showing me him, the person who'd raised him, actually called him. So yes, they can. And they can become highly, highly, highly comfortable with people, to the point that, although you should always be aware and be careful, to the point that you can walk up to them and touch them. Again, that's not something we want in an ideal world, but with Rhino, obviously raising rhinos and orphans and so on, with the current predicament with poaching, is something that does happen. So yes. Oh, all the Rhino questions. Lisa, yes, I would say that mothers do imprint on their babies. That bond between a female rhino and her calf is so, so strong. So yes, they do imprint on their little ones. A sense of smell immediately becomes something they associate with and they are very familiar with and connected to. They know that sense that is their calf. And you'll see rhino mothers with two calves of the same age often wandering about together. They never get confused. They never mistake one calf for their own. It's something that they just don't do. That maternal connection is very, very powerful. So is the connection between the calf and the mother. I mean, that calf is bonded to mom, tightly, tightly bonded to mom for the first 3 years of its life, which makes its separation, when a younger sibling is born, that much more traumatic. It's something that is actually heartbreaking to see. I've seen it a few times, and the poor older sibling runs back to mom, and she chases it away and squeals and cries and moans, and then hangs around on the outskirts like this. So depressed for days afterwards. It's so, so sad. But of course, that bond between mom and calf is very, very strong. They invest a huge amount in their offspring, which is why they have such a high survival rate. Jeff, no. Twin births are very rare. I don't know actually if they've ever... I suspect you'll have 1 or 2 recorded cases like with elephants or with giraffe or hippo where you get a twin birth, but it's very, very unusual. And a baby rhino will weigh around about 30 to 40 kilograms at birth. And the mother's only pregnant for about 1.5 years, just under 1.5 years. There's not a lot of room for twins, and it's contrary to the way that elephants and rhino have evolved, which is to invest a huge amount in one offspring in a very long period of time, but ensure that their survival rate is exceptionally high, as opposed to something like a cat's not the best example, but I suppose it is. Lions, cheetah, leopard, they'll have more than one naturally, because the chances of that cub surviving is very slim. Wild dogs as well will have lots and lots and lots of puppies. That's an answer to our Lara Moore's question about, can I describe the vocalizations of rhino? They sound like cetaceans of some kind. They sound like dolphins or whales to me. They squeal, they moan. There's a deep growling sound that they're capable of making, particularly during mating. But largely their vocalization consists of squealing. And I would love to give you an example. I really should actually save one on my phone. I'm not sure how the speaker works with this setup. I doubt it does. I'd have to... It does, I could just play it. Oh, okay, cool. I shall play for you. This will do, because they're at least... I miss that sound so much. You get the idea. So those are orphaned rhinos. His mother was killed by poachers. Both of them lost their mothers to poachers, and they were put in an orphanage and raised. So that's them begging for food. That's sort of what rhinos sound like when they fight as well. You also get the puff, 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 puff sound of them getting very disgruntled. And that's usually when you're walking in very dense vegetation, you're being charged by a black rhino. That's what the first thing you hear is a sort of stomps of feet. But those are the main vocalizations that they make. There's also a low growling sound, but I don't know if I'll be able to find that quickly for you. I'll try and find it when I have a moment, and then I'll play it for you. Okay, speaking of having a moment, I'm going to look for that vocalization. Let's go across to Brent, who has finally made his way to the Mara River. Let's go and see if there's any animals waiting to cross.
No animals waiting to cross, but animals waiting for a crossing. There are quite a few big crocodiles still in the same area where we had them yesterday. Just waiting patiently. And I suppose a crocodile is the epitome of patience. I'm trying to move forward a little bit. Yesterday we had some really big ones out of the water just over here. So I'm going to see if there are any basking on this little bank. Oh, there are, but not the big ones. Not as big as the ones that were basking out there yesterday. Now, Gina's wondering what color are crocodiles. They can be various colors, as you can see. They've got sort of yellowy green and brown gray. You get very dark crocodiles that almost look black. Their bellies, however, are sort of whitey yellow, creamy yellow, and when they are pretending to be a log, waiting for some poor unsuspecting creature to jump into their jaws. Now, yesterday at the next crossing down, Dusty Crossing, we had that wonderful lion-hyena interaction, and then Jamie had the wonderful lion trying to pull the zebra into the shade. And that, of course, is another popular crossing point. Now, you can see the from there, or actually I want to check the next plane to see if there are any topi or zebra who look like they might want to cross at some point today. Hi Robin. Robin's wondering, do crocodiles ever fight each other for food? Yes, they do. Yesterday we saw a big male crocodile that had quite a few sort of bite marks around his face, and that would have been from fighting for food when they did manage to catch that couple of zebra yesterday. Now, the other interesting thing about crocodiles is they have incredible healing properties. So they're able to heal from quite drastic wounds very, very well. And crocodile oil is actually quite sought after in certain cultures, and that oil can be placed on scars or wounds, and it helps them heal very, very quickly. I've even used crocodile oil on I had a 3rd-degree burn on my calf from a motorbike accident, and that oil actually almost completely erased the burn. You can barely see the scar. So quite a lot of quite a big part in a lot of different African folklore for lots of different reasons, and in some places they are revered, but in most places they are loathed and feared. Now there's some particularly big crocodiles that have made names for themselves over the years, and please land, please land, please land. Don't fly. You're going to keep flying, aren't you? You're going to keep flying. And you landed. But I don't know. It might be a bit too far. There we go. It's not one we see too often in the Mara. Grey-hooded kingfisher. So we see woodlands far more frequently. There we go. It is a bit far away. Pretty bird, though. Wait. What is going on just to the right? There's wind moving that branch? Yeah, it's wind. Okay. So, the most famous crocodile in Africa at the moment is probably Gustav, who hunts people regularly, and the northern section of Lake Tanganyika, mostly around Burundi and into Tanzania. There's a big swampy area there where people do a lot of fishing, and that's his sort of hideout. Now, I'll tell you some more terrifying crocodile stories shortly, but in the meantime, Jamie is going to show you how a crocodile's jaw does its damage.
Terrifying tales indeed. I'm sure you're all waiting in eager anticipation both for Brent's terrifying crocodile tales and, of course, to find out whether the cub ever gets down the tree. But you'll have to wait for that, because at the moment we are indeed talking about crocodiles. Now, with a bite force greater than an alligator, greater than a hyena, greater than a great white shark, a crocodile's bite force is what makes it truly extraordinary. This thing's really heavy, and I'm really scared I'm going to break it. But essentially, the muscles that control the shutting of the jaw are very, very, very strong. The opening of the jaw, less so, which is why even with a croc this size, okay, I wouldn't advise it, please don't do it. You could probably hold its jaw shut. Of course, then the entire animal would be thrashing, and you'd probably find yourself seriously injured, because a crocodile this size is going to be enormous. I know that there's a calculation to work out how long a crocodile would be by the size of its head. There's a ratio. Makes sense. I mean, essentially they're going to have the same ratio depending on the size, head length to body size. So I can't remember what the ratio is, but we could find it out, and we could work out exactly how long this crocodile would have been if A, it was alive, and B, wasn't a 3D bone replica. So, the bite force, upwards, the crocodile struggles to open its jaw again. But, crushing downwards, it's capable of 5,000 pounds per foot. What is it? It's a massive, massive bite force. It's a really very strong bite force. It is easily about 5 times that of a hyena. And a hyena's got a pretty strong jaw force, or bite force. And all of that is done by muscle attachments that run along the side of the jaw. And if you look at the bulges, maybe Brent will show you at some point in the future. If you look at the bulges around a crocodile, the side of a crocodile's head, you can really see the developed muscles. And it's also got extra length for attachment. So those muscles have just got all of the power needed contained within them in order to bite down and crush. The problem with that, of course, is that now, you've met the crocodiles of the Mara River. Now you've got a situation where you've got teeth like this. Now, a crocodile's teeth are essentially designed for grabbing its prey. Great. I often get ripped out, but a crocodile can continue to replace its teeth. So now it's grabbed its prey, it's got this massive bite force, but now what? Because actually, it can't really... This thing is a bit heavy, hold on. Let me move bottom jaw over here, let me not break anything. James will fly to the Mara and shout at me. Okay, there you go. So, you've got this design where it's basically a trap. It's a trap that closes and drowns the animal and doesn't allow it to get loose. But now the crocodile wants to eat said animal. And this is where it becomes very tricky, because if you compare it to something like a lion, with its carnassial shear, the molars that are capable of slicing through the meat almost like a pair of scissors, the crocodile doesn't really have that. In fact, you can imagine trying to eat a steak with teeth like these. You need some serious industrial size dental floss for a start. And that's one of the reasons why they actually leave the food to rot in the water in the way that they do. It helps to soften it. And at the same time, it's why they've developed this peculiar method. Now, the death roll, we all know about, that's when they're killing the animal. But they also roll to tear off chunks of the animal that they're trying to eat. They grab it with the front of their mouths and they twirl until they actually use their strength to tear the meat away. And then instead of bothering to chew, because you might as well not bother with these sorts of teeth, all you're going to do is kind of crush it a little bit. So instead of bothering to chew, it basically all goes down whole. So that is the crocodile. A fascinating creature. Okay, speaking of muscle attachment and bulges on crocodiles' faces, I mentioned that there's a good chance Brent might be able to show them to you. Let's head across back down to the Mara River so that he can.
There we go. You can see those massive muscles on the cheek of the crocodile. Now, as I'm sure Jamie explained, there's massive downward pressure on them, but very little upward pressure. So even a very big crocodile, I can hold its mouth closed with my hands. I've actually done that before. I've caught quite a few crocodiles in my day. The biggest crocodile I caught was about just over 4 meters, and quite tough catching a croc, but it is doable. And there's a couple of different methods. The best and safest method is generally to use bait and a cage trap, but sometimes you have to improvise when the area doesn't sort of lean towards that type of trapping, and that's when you just jump on it. Connor is wondering, is it true that crocodiles never stop growing as long as they have food? Well, they do never stop growing. However, their growth rate slows immensely the older they get, and they do keep growing throughout their life, and they have very long lives, over 100 years. But however, they do tend to their growth rate slows down exponentially as they get older. I'm just trying to see if we can see any wounds. Not really on that one. Now, I was wondering about zebra and whether there would be any zebra thinking about crossing, and we've actually got some possibly thinking about crossing just below us. Those ones there. There are some smaller crossing points just below here. And there is quite a few zebra here. Some of the other zebras seem to be moving around behind us. They might come up towards this crossing, or they might head through to the main crossings. Now, yesterday, the lions were just here. And Ali is wondering, are crocodiles a threat to any other animals? They're a threat to all animals that decide to get into the water. They are waiting patiently for the zebra to try swim across the river, and they will definitely try catch them. They are meat eaters, so they are definitely a threat to most animals, whether the animals are drinking on the side of the water or whether the animals are swimming across the river. So they're a threat to lions, hyenas, humans, zebra, wildebeest. Okay, now I'm just trying to keep an eye out on what the zebras are doing. While we do that, let's just have a quick look in the shade on those trees there. So that's where, or a little bit further to the left, is where Jamie left the Paradise Pride with a zebra they caught after it crossed yesterday. So I wonder if the lions are still close by around there and just waiting for the zebras to try cross again. Now, it sounds like Jamie's got a view of something from the mountain cam. Let's go find out what.
There's quite a few somethings from the mountain cam, and while it is a little bit heat hazy and the sun is shining sort of straight in the direction of the mountain camera, so it's not as clear as it could be, we've got a combination of several different species. But look. Are there any little baby warthogs there? I think, yes, look. Look at the tiny little warthogs. There's Mom in the top left of your screen. And 2 tiny little ones. I've become particularly attached to the warthog families. There's 3 females that I see regularly on my way down the escarpment. And between them they have about, I would say the two females that spend time together, we're blowing in the wind. I would say that they have about 7 piglets. Oh, there's 3 piglets. And then there's this female with 3. I was actually secretly concerned she'd lost some. There's 4! Maybe it's not the female I'm thinking of. She only had 3 yesterday. Ran, are warthogs territorial? No, not particularly, although they have home ranges. The females will not fight each other, and it's not uncommon. What's that little piglet doing? It's not uncommon to see male warthogs together in one area. What happens, though, is that they fight very seriously. This is as far as I can zoom in, because that little piglet looks like it's having the best time. So the males will fight over females in estrus. Oh, I think they're having a little scrap, those two. They'll fight over females in estrus. In South Africa, the rutting season is very clearly defined, and it's quite fearsome to see them fighting. But it's possible to see 2 males in relatively close vicinity to each other without them being particularly uncomfortable. What I've seen recently that's interested me is, this is a little wobbly, I'm going to go out a little bit. What I've seen that's interested me recently has been males chasing piglets around. Oh, panic, where's mom? There's mom. Alright, everybody calm down. I think they didn't realize how far away she'd got. But I don't quite know why it is that I've seen it happen so many times. The male's just chasing piglets. And the piglets squealing and running round and round and round mum. I don't quite know what it has to do with, because it's not as though they commit infanticide. Oh, look at the zebra down there. It's also having an amazing time. That zebra. There's a zebra lying down having a little bit of a roll in the dirt. Oh, my framing's terrible. There's leaves blowing in. Let me try and correct that. There we go. And I've cut off half a zebra. And I haven't obeyed the rule of thirds. It's all gone wrong. This is why I'm not employed as a cameraman. And zebra is flat out in the morning sun. You can see it's very windy down there. The zebra that I'm talking about, by the way, is not the one that's lying down that you can clearly see as a zebra. It's the rock that's moving. Just so that you know. It's the... How do I even describe where it is? You get what I'm saying. You can see it moving, I'm sure. You're paying close attention to the scene in front of you. The giraffe are also having a morning bask and ruminate. Sit and enjoy the sunlight. It is windy down there and pretty chilly. It was a chilly morning to start with, I felt. I don't know, though, because I never got out. I sat at the gate for a while. It was deeply tragic. Now, while I do believe that this is probably one of the best views we have ever had of zebra, I do feel as though I shouldn't monopolize the zebra sightings of the Mara. Let's go across to Brent, who, talking of zebra, probably has a slightly better view.
Well, we're just patiently watching to see what the zebras get up to, whether they are going to try and take a plunge through the river. Some of them have disappeared into the croton thickets close to the river's edge, and I'm just trying to watch a little spit of land that is right on the river's bank that the zebras might come pop out on. So there we go, that's it there. And you see the hippos behind. So there's quite a lot of zebra that have disappeared into that little area now, and that is one of the crossing points, not one of the more common crossing points, but I'd say it's not a bad one. Less crocodiles there. You can see the zebras slowly but surely disappearing in there. There's some more zebras that are just behind us, but I've seen probably about 30 or 40 zebra have disappeared into the trees there now, and I haven't seen any come out. So, like with a lot of things in the African wild, being patient is very important. waiting for the right moment. And putting yourself in the position to be in the right place when the right moment happens to come along. Now, while we wait to see what those zebras do, we do have some birds on the opposite bank. I think James actually saw them a little bit earlier this morning, but all the way down in South Africa. They are one of the most widespread birds in Africa, all the way from Egypt to Cape Town. Standing on one leg, being very zen, doing their morning, I wonder what you call bird yoga. No idea. Now, of course, I said they could be quite ferocious, particularly if you're a golfer in Southern Africa. They are all over the golf courses. Lady is wondering, will the crocodiles eat those birds? Well, the size of the crocodiles we're looking at around here, those birds aren't worth the effort. And they'd much rather wait for a zebra or a topi to swim across the river and into their jaws. So, no, smaller crocodiles, they do sometimes take birds, but these big crocodiles, it's not really worth their time and effort to try catch an Egyptian goose. Oh, dearie me, I just saw a spine tail. Where did it go? Oh, there's a hippo's nose. Whoop. So, Bex, you broke up there. Can you go again? Oh, yes, I did. I apologize, I forgot. And that was that I would tell you some stories about murderous crocodiles. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time in different parts of Africa, and I've come across some fantastical stories about crocodiles, some true, some not, some terrible, some interesting. But when it comes to human beings, they generally don't end well. So, let me think of a good one. Since I was recently in Uganda on the Nile River. Oh, there we go. Look at the geese walking right up to the crocodile now, while I continue to tell the story. So we were on the Nile River recently, and everyone there says the crocodiles are gone in certain sections, and everyone swims, which is good for them. I panicked while swimming. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stay in the water for too long. If there was a crocodile there will be a crocodile again at some point, and it's not the crocodile. It's the crocodile you don't see that eats you. I have a very healthy respect for crocodiles, but in Khartoum, which is downstream, obviously, from where we were, there was quite a famous old, well, not so old, but quite a famous old explorer and hunter who spent a lot of time in Africa, sort of in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And he was sort of semi-retired or getting towards the end of his career, living in some of the wildest places of Africa. And he came across a bunch of Peace Corps kids. I think this is probably late 80s or early 80s. So a bunch of Peace Corps kids that was swimming in the Nile River. And he said to them, "You are all stupid idiots. Get out of the water, otherwise a crocodile will eat you." And they told him he was talking nonsense. They'd spoken to all the local people, and they said the crocodiles were gone from this area. And he said, no, I saw a crocodile yesterday basking on that bank there, and it was plenty big enough to eat you. And as he sort of started walking away, there was a big swish, and the one girl out of the 4 people was gone, never to be seen again. And crocodiles are absolute apex predators. They are incredibly stealthy when they need to be. In areas of human persecution, they disappear. They're there, but you won't see them till it's too late. Or you won't see them, you might feel them attached to your leg. Well, I see the zebra have decided it's not a good idea to cross there. They've moved out of the trees here. They all come. So while we wait to see where the zebras head off to next, let's go across to Jamie, who's about to finish the story.
The final installment. I can hear them cackling in final control. So, when we last left our hero, he was up a tree, but let's just do a quick recap. But climbing down wasn't so easy. "Help!" cried Cub. "I'm stuck!" Taylor McCurdy's laugh, carrying through the camp. "Thank goodness!" Mom to the rescue. "Down you come, little bird." Thank goodness for mothers. And so ends our story with a very, very important lesson from mothers around the world. "Promise you won't wander off on your own anymore," said Mum. "I promise," said Cub. "Now let's play catch your tail." "Ouch!" cried Mum. But she was happy. Cub was safe and sound. A beautiful end to a truly beautiful story. As I said, I definitely didn't see that twist coming at all. Fortunately, Mum was there to save the little cub. Of course, we're being very silly here, and also I'm getting a headache. But just an important little reminder. I mean, that in terms of factual inaccuracies, it wasn't that bad a book. Lion cubs do wander off on their own, and they do often get rescued by Mum. I've never seen a mum climb, and I've seen a cub stuck up a tree, but I've never seen Mum carry the cub down. But books like this are so wonderful to read to your kids because, of course, when they're little, it really does inspire an interest in nature. Plus, it had flaps. The flaps were the best part. I wish all books had flaps. It'd be amazing. Maybe a bit irritating. I don't know. I can't really see straight. Okay, I'm going to retrain the muscles in my eyes to look normal. Let's go back across to Brenda for the last few minutes of the Sunrise Safari.
Well, there we go. The zebras have decided it's probably not a good idea to cross there, but just hang on. What are those other zebras doing at the back? Let me just go back a little bit. So this is the one game you play about rolling the crossing dice, is that there are quite a few crossings, even in a small area like this. So I'm just trying to see. I saw some zebra running around. Nah. Teresa's wondering, why would the zebra keep crossing if they keep getting killed by crocodiles? Well, Teresa, it's very simple. That the quality of the grass around the Paradise Plain in Musiara Marsh at the moment is really, really good. It's very short. There's been lots of rain, so that's what's attracting them. Now, I did spot something else we could have a look at quickly. It just landed. Oh, it's taken off again. But let's have a last look at the river. Oh, there's a yellow-billed stork. Upstream on the edge of the river, looking for frogs and fish. And there's another crocodile. Lots and lots of crocodiles. Now, occasionally, again, crocodiles will attack storks. Oh, we have a question from Taylor McCurdy in Final Control, the herdy-birdie herself. Taylor would like to know if I've seen any baby crocodiles in the Mara. I have, quite a few. In the Kikarok stream, there was a nest I was watching for many weeks. Unfortunately, I was hoping to try catch a live crocodile birth or hatching, but in the 3 days that I was not on the other side of the river, they did hatch. So there's quite a lot, very close to Sala's camp. There's probably, I saw there were about 25 or 30 after the hatching, but I'm sure those numbers have been taken down by fish eagles and other things. But from all of us here in the Mara, hopefully we're going to be seeing you in not too long. We might go live at any time out here. but also hopefully Djuma is able to rectify their gremlins and will be joining us all for the sunset safari. But if not, the Mara will prevail, and hopefully we've got lots of wonderful animals to show you. But remember, watch out for those go live notifications. You never know when something's going to happen next.